interviewing today our Grandpa Don Bivens.
Okay, today we are going to be interviewing my grandpa that fought in the Vietnam War. Where were you born?
Decatur, Illinois.
What were your parents' names and occupations?
My father was Don Bivens, Sr. My mother was Margaret Bivens. Steve is my only sibling, my brother Steve.
What were your parents or siblings' feelings about you joining the service?
They didn't have any problem with me going to the service. They had problems when they found out I was going to Vietnam.
What kinds of jobs did you hold prior to entering the military?
I worked in a steel plant.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military?
It was I'll have to think for a minute. It was 1964.
Were you drafted or did you volunteer?
Drafted.
What or who did you leave behind when you left to serve?
Just my parents and my brother.
And what branch did you enter?
Army.
How did you feel about being drafted?
I wasn't excited.
What is your most vivid memory of your time training?
Probably the most vivid thing I remember about it is we had certain things we had to do each day. We might be walking or marching, but the next day we might be crawling in the dirt. And it was just, training.
What was the best part and what was the worst part?
The best part was coming home. And the worst part was staying there.
What was the first assignment after basic training?
My first assignment after basic training was getting ready to go to Vietnam.
Did you receive any specialized training?
For Vietnam, I did.
What do you recall your instructors?
I had some good instructors. They were not hard to get along with, but they expected you to do what they told you to do.
Even like whenever you were first training, they expected you to do it?
Pardon?
Like whenever you went to the training, they expected you to do it like perfectly?
Oh, not perfect. It was the idea to have the training.
Did you qualify with equipment, vehicles, aircraft, radios, weapons?
Weapons, I qualified with the M16 and the trying to think of what it was. The pistols and I can't remember what it was.
Did you have to qualify for any kind of vehicles as well, or
Yeah,
aircraft, or radios?
I qualified as in the trucks, And in fact, I drove them all through basic training. I would take the troops and take them out to the places they were supposed to go, and then I would go back and get them and bring them back to the base camp. And we had in the training, we would go, like I said, to take the troops back and forth. And then we also had to get all of the equipment that was taken out, put in the truck and brought it back and forth. And that's about it.
Got it? What? Radios?
What about radios?
No, I never had a radio.
Never had a radio? Did you receive any promotions? Could you tell me about them?
Yeah, I was promoted to a PFC.
And what's a PFC?
You had a private first class, then you had a PFC, and then at a later date they set a new regulation for PFCs, and they called them they were a PFC E3, and then you went on up from there.
Okay. What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you
To adapt to.
Probably the hardest part I had over there, if it was just during the service, was the fact that getting up early in the morning, I mean, they'd wake you up at 6 o'clock. They'd expect you to be out in Reveille at 7 and ready to do whatever you had to do starting at 8. And like I said, we had to walk, we had to march, and it was about the marching and stuff wasn't bad, but they expected you to march. We had to march, like at one point we had to march 5 miles.
5 miles?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that was tiring.
I'd be exhausted.
And what you said reveille, what's a reveille?
Reveille is when they would have the trumpet sound to wake everyone up.
Okay.
What was the easiest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to? Why do you think it was?
It was easy to adapt to the military style or whatever you was doing, but it was just the idea of how they expected you to do it and how it was,
How quick did you adapt to the military lifestyle?
Pretty quick.
Pretty quick?
Yeah, pretty quick, really. And
I don't know if we asked this or not. So how old were you when you
when I went in,
Yeah.
18,
Wow. Okay.
Where did you serve?
Vietnam.
What are your memories of that experience?
Vietnam was very different than anything they did in the United States. We could get up in the morning and we'd drive our trucks. We would be going somewhere in our trucks, going south of Vietnam or south in Vietnam. We went south of Saigon and we was in the rice paddies there, and we'd come back and in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, but we would be taking south of Saigon, we'd be hauling truckloads of dirt to our forces there, and they were using it to build it around this camp and keep it, hopefully save themselves from shelling. And there was a few times that I had to stay overnight, and I actually had to walk in the rice paddies on missions, and never had any problems. And but it was different, really different. I mean, it was dark, and you was walking, and you could see them shooting and stuff off in a distance, and but they never shot directly at us. It was just off in a distance.
How did your combat experience change you?
Made me a lot more aware of what was going on around me, and made me more, like I said, more aware. And I don't know, it was just a different world to be in.
What kinds of friendships did you form while serving, and with who?
Many friendships. You don't have it. You were there for everybody, and everybody was there for you. And you all worked together.
What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
In our base camp, we had two trailers. Trailers that were set up as places to eat. Go in there and get ice cream or whatever you wanted, or you could go in there and eat, or you can go to the base and eat. Either way.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Yeah. I was stuck in the rice paddies for 2 nights. We was going down the road, and a Jeep come back the other way and actually run me off the road and it pushed me in the rice paddy on my side, on the truck side. And I and the young man I was with, we had to stay 2 nights. And he wanted to know, well, what we're going to do if they come after us. And I said, well, we're going to shoot them. It's just that simple. We're going to shoot them before they shoot us. But you could see them shooting, maybe, I don't know how far it was, but you could see them shooting at others, and they never did come to where we were at. And I still don't know how I got the truck out of the rice paddy, but I got it out of there somehow, and because it was tipped up on its side, and but of course I shot at the people that run me off the road too, you know.
Were the rice paddies, were they
No,
were they thick? Were they muddy?
they were muddy.
They're very muddy. Were they very tall fields? Like was the crop tall? Could you hide in it, or was it very low
Low.
where you can be seen? Okay.
Low.
Was there something you did for good luck?
Yeah, the Lord.
What was the best part of your service experiment?
The best part of the service? Probably the getting back home.
Do you recall the day service ended?
I felt good. When we went over in planes and come back in planes. And so many of the troops went over in ships and then were shipped back home. When I came back home, I went from Benoit to, where was that at? Went to Benoit to one of the islands. We went to 2 different islands. Then they flew us into Alaska and flew us on to the East Coast. Then they took us by truck to Illinois.
Where were you when your service ended?
It ended in Vietnam, and my service actually ended in the States, and that's when I was let out of the Army.
How were you received by your family and community?
When your service had ended and you came back home, how were you received by your family? And
By our family, I was received fine. It was just the general public that you were looked down on.
And why was that? Why was the public angry
Because
at you guys?
Because the biggest part of the people that were about as old as I was, and they were just flatly against the war. And so they looked down on everybody that went.
How did you adjust to civilian life? Did you work or go back to school?
I adjusted to the move here, and it's just how you were treated. I mean, I adjusted, but it was hard to create to everything.
Did you go back to work And
Yes.
or did you go back to school when you came back?
No, I went back to work.
How did service change you?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. It changed me. Because I was kind of bitter about the way the people treated me.
Did you did the bitterness ever change or go away as people became more aware of why the war took place?
Yes.
Or so you did you notice that change like quickly, or did it take many years before the community started adjusting and changing their perspective on it?
It took a while to change. Because, I mean, the war went on till, I don't know, what was it been, about 5 years after I got out of there. And it started to change.
How long were you in Vietnam in total?
In total, I was on my second year, or in my second year, and I should have been out of there in January of, or not January. Yeah, January of '67, and I got out right towards the last of '67. You're supposed to spend 2 years, and I spent a little over 2.
Okay.
Did you continue any
Friendship.
friendships after service?
Didn't really maintain any of the any of the witterships because people lived from all over the country. You know, one of my best buddies was lived in Denmark, Wisconsin. Another one lived in Ohio. Another one lived in. So I didn't really maintain anything with them.
How did service affect the way you relate to others?
I looked at them differently after a while. And, I mean, after a while, I got to a point where, hey, I'll just, I treat them as nice as I could.
What are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
I think the life lessons I learned from the military service, after a while, was working as a team or working as a group, and
You think your like work ethic changed
yes,
prior and
I think
how you were before and after the military?
yes.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
When I first went in and when I first went to Vietnam, I really didn't care for it, but I made the best of it. After a while, when I was over there, then I kind of I don't know how to say it. I kind of settled in then to a point, and where I could, you never settled into the end, but you was taught to work as I said, in a team, and
How did you feel towards war in general after being a part of one, and then any military conflict that took place after you were involved with Vietnam?
I didn't want anything to do with it.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
Oh, I could tell you about this. They had the Vietnam people blew up our. This is all of our military our shells and stuff, and they actually shot into it and blew them up. And but that was kind of scary, because all of these Connex containers were filled with shells of some type, and as they blew up, the stuff would shoot over to us because it was blowing, and and we never knew where the stuff was going to hit. And I wrecked a couple of trucks over there.
And what was it? What was your commander's response to that?
Well, he didn't say a whole lot. And he talked to me about it.
Were you disciplined?
No.
No?
Nope. But some of the vehicles I drove were 5-ton dumps, and these were
Those are the trucks you drove?
pardon?
Were those the trucks that you drove?
Yeah, I drove those. These are trucks that I drove. And all in all, I'm glad I went. I really am. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I come home safe. And
Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you never have?
Well, I hope you guys never have to worry about it, with the way it is now. I don't know that you'd ever have to worry about it. And 'cause I think they have to remember that Vietnam was a different kind of war. And and I just hope that, like you guys and other people, don't ever have to go through that kind of problem or go through that kind of deal. But like I said, for me, I'm glad I went. I really am.
Why are you glad you went?
I'm glad I went and did what I think I was put there to do. I think I did it.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
I wish more people would realize what the veteran went through and what they had to do, But it's so hard for someone to tell somebody what they went through,
How does it make you feel when you wear your hat and people acknowledge your service?
I feel good. I can't begin to tell you how many people stop me and say thanks for your service, or hey, my son was over there, and blah 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 blah, and a lady had stopped me here. Oh, it's about 2 months ago, and said her husband was over there. It said he was shot twice. And she said, was you ever shot? And I said, no. And she said, well, you were lucky. She said, well, he come home all right. And but he was shot twice. And then I don't know how many times I was told by a lady that her husband was shot and killed, or he was shot and hurt pretty bad. And but that really makes you thankful that you came home with all of your everything.
You want to talk about any of this stuff here, Grams?
I can tell you a little bit about this.
Okay, let me.
These are all pictures of Vietnam, where we were at.
What was the Vietnam weather like when you were there?
We had a monsoon season, and then we had just this regular sunny season. This is part a big building in Saigon. These are just other pictures.
Who's the man in that picture there, right here? Who's this?
That was, it was a good buddy of mine. He was from Hawaii. These are all pictures of Vietnam. This is much like Vietnam was the whole time.
Just dry.
Yeah, it's dry and a monkey.
Is that one of the trucks you drove?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a low boy.
What's happening there?
Who's this?
That's sandage.
Who's this?
That's a little girl. She was someone I tried to help her a lot. She was not very, didn't have a lot of food. And we used to take food out to her. There's the 2 trucks I wrecked.
Wow.
Just a couple pictures.
Oh, this is you?
Yeah. This is our crest. This is one of mine I had for the 5th Division. That was it's just a small emblem, but you had the larger one if you had the one that you stuck on your shirt. I never did get one. I just picked this one up. This is national defense. This is I forget which one that is. This one here was it's the infantry badge, Vietnam. That was forget what that one is.
What about that patch down there? What is that?
Coochie is. It was for south of Saigon. That was an area that the Vietnamese were quite heavy in, or the Viet Cong were quite heavy in.
Hmm.
And they had a lot of action down there.
And was this a type of gun that you had, or just something?
Yeah, this was the type of sidearm that I had.
Okay.
And they weigh a ton.